In the quiet village of Hallow's End, the moon held more secrets than the stars. It was said that once every 20 years, the moon became hollow, its pale glow dimming to a sickly yellow, casting eerie shadows across the land. The villagers spoke in hushed tones of this event, calling it the Veil of the Hollow Moon. For generations, they'd kept their fires burning bright during that time, afraid of what lurked in the darkness. This year, the veil was due to fall again. Ella, a curious and headstrong young woman, had grown up with tales of the hollow moon. Unlike the others, she was not afraid. Her grandmother had whispered stories of ancient beings and realms hidden within the moon, reachable only when the veil lifted. But most of all, she remembered the tale of the Gatekeeper. The Gatekeeper watches, her grandmother had said. When the moon is hollow, he steps from the other side to claim a soul. Only those brave enough to confront him can stop him. Elle wasn't sure if she believed in such things, but the idea of exploring the mysteries of the hollow moon intrigued her. On the night the moon began to change, she packed her lantern, a knife, and a book of old incantations her grandmother had left behind. She made her way into the dense forest outside the village, where the veil was said to be thinnest. As she walked deeper into the woods, the moon's light weakened, and a strange stillness fell over the trees. No birds sang, no animals scurried. It was as though the world was holding its breath. A cold wind whispered through the branches, carrying with it faint voices, like echoes of forgotten memories. Ella pressed on, her heart racing but her resolve unshaken. Soon, she came upon a clearing, where the ground was bare and the trees formed a perfect circle. In the center, a stone altar stood, ancient and weathered. Above it, the moon loomed large and hollow, its once bright surface now resembling a cracked shell. As she approached the altar, the air grew colder, and the shadows around her began to twist and writhe. She could feel something watching her. Then, from the edge of the clearing, a figure emerged. The Gatekeeper. He was tall and gaunt, his face obscured by a hooded cloak. His skin was pale as bone, and his eyes glowed with a faint, unnatural light. In his hand, he carried a long, rusted key. "You've come to confront the veil," the Gatekeeper rasped, his voice like the wind through dead leaves. "But do you understand the price?" Ella swallowed hard, gripping the knife in her hand. "I came to stop you," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I won't let you take anyone from the village." The Gatekeeper's thin lips curled into a smile. Bravery is a rare thing beneath the hollow moon. But the veil is not to be fought. It is to be embraced. With a sudden flick of his wrist, the Gatekeeper pointed the key at the sky, and the moon began to change. The hollow cracks in its surface widened, revealing an inky blackness beneath, swirling with malevolent energy. A low, rumbling sound filled the air, like the earth itself was groaning in pain. From the cracks in the moon, figures began to descend. They were shadowy, twisted beings, their forms constantly shifting, like smoke caught in the wind. They moved slowly at first, but as they neared the ground, their pace quickened, their shapes solidifying into grotesque creatures with long, grasping limbs and eyeless faces. Ella took a step back, her mind racing. She had read about these creatures in her grandmother's book. They were the hollow ones, souls consumed by the veil, twisted into monstrous forms. "Stop this," Ella shouted, raising her knife. "I'll fight you if I have to." The Gatekeeper laughed, a hollow, echoing sound. "Fight? There is no fight. The veil has already claimed you." Before she could react, the ground beneath her feet began to shift, and a deep, cold sensation washed over her. She looked down to see shadowy tendrils wrapping around her legs, pulling her toward the altar. She tried to struggle, but the more she fought, the tighter they became. "The veil does not take just any soul," the Gatekeeper said, his voice soft now, almost pitying. "It takes those who seek it. Those who are drawn to the hollow moon by their own curiosity. Or their own darkness." Ella felt the cold tendrils creeping up her body, their touch like ice on her skin. She could barely move, barely breathe. The creatures from the moon were closing in, their whispers filling her ears, their hands reaching out to claim her. In a final act of desperation, she reached for the book of incantations, her fingers trembling as she tried to remember the words. But the shadows were too strong, the veil too thick. The last thing she saw before the darkness consumed her was the Gatekeeper's cold, glowing eyes, watching her with a mixture of sorrow and satisfaction. When the villagers found the clearing the next morning, there was no sign of Ella. Only the altar remained, its surface cracked and blackened, as though something had burned it from within. And above, the moon had returned to its full, bright glow. Whole once again.